All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Anaplan's Grants Management webinar. We're thrilled to have you today. My name is Chris Cunningham, and I'm Regional Vice President here at Anaplan. Joining me is Eric Doherty, a lead solutions consultant with our esteemed implementation partner, Allitix. We're excited to guide you through today's session and showcase how Anaplan can elevate your grants management process. So for the agenda, before we officially kick things off, we'll do a short introduction to Anaplan and our partnership with Allitix, and also some of the key considerations for you to think about for your organization. And then we'll dive into the demo, showcasing the capabilities and benefits of our grants management solution. And then we'll wrap up with the Q&A and hopefully address some of your questions. Please remember to also submit your questions in the chat below. We'll do our best to address as many as possible during the Q&A. Those that we don't get to, we will make sure that an Anaplan representative follows up with you shortly after. To start, let's talk about Anaplan. So we are the leading software platform for extended planning and analysis, XP&A. Our platform enables you to conduct virtually any kind of complex planning and analysis. Currently, over 150 institutions rely on us for grants management, long-range planning, capital projects planning, portfolio management, budgeting and forecasting, etc. This comprehensive capability within our platform eliminates silos and allows you to foster collaboration across your agency or institution. Anaplan serves over 2,400 customers, including more than half of the Fortune 50, which are some of the largest and most complex organizations from various industries across the globe. And impressively, 68% of those customer bases leverage Anaplan for multiple use cases. And this is inherently because of our technology, which helps foster decision excellence, provides clear and concise and fast information to navigate the evolving uncertainties of our age. So the realities, why do grants management better? Agencies and institutions face continuous and evolving regulations, budget cuts, and the need for clarity and direction in your programs and initiatives. These elements must align with the overarching missions and causes that help our society function. And there's increasing scrutiny around successful implementation and reporting of grant funding, which is higher than ever due to these regulatory changes and evolving state changes. As competition for scarce grant programs increases, it becomes crucial to demonstrate the success of these initiatives and projects and ensure timely submissions. Failure of these areas exposes us to growing risks. Some of the key challenges include fragmented reporting. Different departments using varying formats make it challenging to compile those comprehensive reports. An absence of clear working guidelines and communication channels will inevitably lead to delays in submission. There's evolving requirements around federal funds, such as the Data Act, the OMB Uniform Grants Guidance, and GRANT Act, which necessitate accurate reporting. Failure to comply can result in loss of funding eligibility. Also, receiving and addressing findings from recent grant audits, which often highlight misuse of funds and compliance issues, is critical. Lost drawdowns and inefficient drawdown process results in lost funds. And then finally, the inability to provide comprehensive financial and non-financial data for program performance, which ultimately could lead to grants not being renewed and poor performance reporting. Why does this happen? Many organizations rely on multiple disconnected software tools to manage the grant lifecycle. This fragmentation creates inefficiencies and increases the risk of errors. The absence of standardized process or communication leads to inconsistency and delays. Little to no automation in workflows. Manual interventions become frequent and often error-prone. A lack of documented procedures and processes poses significant challenges, especially if a team member leaves. A loss of institutional knowledge can disrupt ongoing operations and hinder continuity. And then finally, information often resides in silos with no central repository or management processes. This isolation makes it difficult to access comprehensive and up-to-date information and leads to inefficiencies and often miscommunication. Addressing these root causes is essential for improving the grant management process and ensuring successful outcomes. What changes with Anaplan? For one, For one, you will have a unified platform. All your grants data is centralized in Anaplan, eliminating the inefficiencies of multiple disconnected tools. For example, instead of managing a grant application in one system, budgeting in another, and performance metrics in yet another, Anaplan will bring that all into one place. This means you no longer have to worry about inconsistent data or time-consuming task of reconciling information from various sources. As a result, you'll gain a clear and comprehensive view of your grants portfolio and ensure accurate and timely decision making. Anaplan also fosters cross collaboration among different stakeholders in the grants process. Imagine a scenario where your grant program managers, finance teams, and compliance officers are all working within the same platform. For instance, when a program manager updates the status of a grant application, the finance team immediately sees the changes and can adjust the budget accordingly. This real-time collaboration reduces miscommunication and ensures that everyone is on the same page, leading to a more streamlined process from application to reporting. The platform's automation and workflow management features also ensure timely submission and grant applications. For example, Anaplan can automatically send reminders for upcoming deadlines and generate compliance reports and ensure that all the necessary documentation is complete and up to date. This is particularly important when meeting evolving compliance standards and reporting requirements for federal funds, such as the Data Act, the OMB Act, etc. By having these processes automated, you significantly reduce the risk of last-minute rushes, errors, and missed deadlines. And overall, maybe the most important, by streamlining the grants management process, Anaplan will help you secure more funding. Improved efficiency and accuracy in reporting and demonstrating the successful impact of your programs will make a compelling case for renewed or increased funding. To conclude, Anaplan revolutionizes the grant management process by streamlining the process from planning to reporting. You'll be able to easily prioritize and adapt grant pursuits with a single source of truth, rapidly model funding scenarios, align them seamlessly with your strategic plan. You'll gain real-time visibility into grant funding, spending, and performance. You'll empower collaboration across departments and stakeholders. And finally, you'll foster an iterative, data-driven making to optimize grant outcomes. You'll be able to measure program effectiveness and ensure efficient budget utilization. Ultimately, Anaplan will help you achieve your funding and impact goals by providing the tools needed for effective and efficient grants management. All right, awesome. Let's jump into the demo.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'll share my screen real quick.
Awesome. Okay, to kind of kick things off, Eric has pulled up a home screen that can be configured kind of to how you want to see it. But to start, and maybe the most important thing to level set, how can we ensure that all our relevant grant information is accessible to all the departments involved and prevent information silos? This is the grants repository where we store all the relevant details of the grant. It ensures that all the departments involved can have access to the same up-to-date information, and it breaks down the information and ensures everybody's aligned.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So as Chris just kind of illustrated, Anaplan is a cloud-based planning platform that's going to bring all aspects of organization together into one single source of truth. So demonstrating this, we have our grant repository. So any grant that gets touched at any time, we want to track that information, track that grant throughout its whole process and its whole life cycle. So what we do is we have a grant repository, which is going to list out our grants that are touched. We can add new grants on the fly. We have different information. You can add as much or as little information as you need. Also, you can have different information of where, in order to add a grant, if you see a red asterisk here, that's going to be information that has to be added before you can move forward. So a lot of information to add, and we have different status, different changes, different things that we can have in that tracking process, as well as the purpose of those grants and different grant notes as we're moving along. And all this information will stay with that grant through its life cycle. as you see with Anaplan, anytime I click on anything within the screen, everything in the dashboard is going to update automatically and bring that information forward for me. Also, if I scroll down the bottom, we have a timeline that's showing all our grants and what's out there currently. And even a little bit further down, we have what those grants are worth and what that funding is going to be. So, if I'm a grant acquisitions manager or whoever on your team would be handling, going after which grants at what time, this is something that's going to let them show, exactly how much some of those grants are worth. So that some grants that they might want to keep eyes on all the time and make sure that they are able to achieve their goal. So before I go too much further, I want to just step into the background as an admin or just a user and just show some of those inherent capabilities within Anaplan that everybody has access to. So first things first is when I hover over certain grids, you can see that I have icons pop up on the side here. And so if I have a grid, I'm able to look at, do searches. I'm able to pivot by hitting on that button, and I can move things around on the fly. I can reset those pivots. I can do filters, do different views. Also, if you look at the top here, because I'm an admin, I have a pencil here. So that's what will open up the background and let me move around things as needed. But also what I'm about to show for the admin, any user has the ability to do a save personal copy. So as you'll see, what we're demonstrating is Anaplan, you can configure it however you want. And if you have certain views you want to have that when you open up a dashboard, you want to see certain things moved up to the top that catch your eye and you're really concerned about, or you have, you have certain tracking that you're wanting to do that might be different from somebody else or how it was originally set up. So you can do a save copy to have that information. But if I hit this pencil here, what that's doing is open up the background. So I have different types of what we call cards. So any of these grids here, you can see my pencil here where it brings out that information. And those are different types of cards that we have. So I can have grids, text, charts, any kind of information that we need and that data that we want to convey over to those users. With that, I can just drag and drop information as I need it on those different cards. So I might move something down here at the bottom and move some other things around. So again, this is just however you want to do it. So that's what we're just illustrating here is, how easy it is to move things around. So I'm going to exit this real quick just so we can not mess that page up too much. And speaking of ease, one thing I like to demonstrate is if I right click on certain cells, you see I have a drop down here. And this is all web-based, of course. But in this case, because this is a formula, I can go down to this drill down. So any cell in Anaplan, if it's formula based, you can drill down, and what that's going to do is show you that formula and show you the data related to it. So if this was also another formula, I could just keep drilling down all the way to that transaction level. So one thing with that formula also, you'll notice it's plain English. It's not Python or anything special that you have to learn. It's plain text that'll allow you to pick up that information really quick. So if you think about Excel, the formulas within Anaplan are purposely set to act a lot like Excel, so you can pick that information up really quickly. Also, if I right click on some data that's been entered, I can say show history. And in this case, I made some changes just to illustrate this. So I can show, the system's tracking every change that's made by anybody in the system. So it's tracking the user, date, time, previous value, new value, any dimensionality along with that value that was changed. So, you can see what was changed. Also, Anaplan for the admins have a history functionality. So at any point, if somebody says they fat finger something, delete a whole spreadsheet or something like that, and they don't know what to do or they don't know how to get that information back, admin can go in at any point in time. And of course, like we just said, Anaplan is tracking any change made. So you can go back before that incident occurred, revert the whole system back to that point before that incident occurred. And if you're not involved in that incident, you wouldn't even notice that change was made. It's going to update the information for you. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Important to touch on, as Eric just explained, the audit trail capability is something unique to Anaplan, the ability to revert back to a previous time, and also highlighting the highly configurability of each page, with Eric having the ability to move cards around the page based on what you feel as a necessity for your organization. You have the ability to do this with admin rights. Okay, transitioning to kind of the next natural question, how can we ensure our grant proposals are thoroughly reviewed and submitted on time? Eric is going to pull up our grant application management dashboard. It allows your team to collaborate in real time and prepare the grant proposal using configurable templates, as Eric demonstrated. Will ensure that all the necessary sections that are important for that grant are covered thoroughly. You'll be able to have automated reminders to help you stay on track with the submission deadlines. You can also It will also help with reducing the risk of missing those critical deadlines with the ability of tagging within a specific cell. And Eric's going to demonstrate that now.
Right. Thanks, Chris. So as Chris was explaining, this is a grant application management page. So what we're doing is taking all those grants within that grant repository area, and we're able to put them in a page where we're able to take that information and make those applications to those grants as needed. So again, as I'm clicking through, I can bring up other grants and other information. I can see the likelihood of those grants being rewarded. I can see stages. I can see all that additional information we had. Again, we're able to see those grant notes and other information so that, all that narrative's there, keeping track of where we're at in those processes, what we're doing, and what that grant's for. So as I scroll down a little bit, again, we can have principal investigators. We try to make this as easy as possible. So if we have drop downs available, we'll have those in the dashboard itself. So all that the users have to do is click and select the proper use. Our grant notes. Also, we have reference projects. So again, with all the competition out there, some grantees are looking for, hey, do we have somebody we've already have a successful outcome with that we want to reward these grants to. So we can have references, and again, with Anaplan, everything's just like Excel, so you can copy and paste. If I right click on, I can click on that, copy it, paste that information, or connect it, however you want to do it, to other grants, so that I'm not having to reinvent the wheel every time I do an application process. I can look at what's been done in the past, bring that information in to those new grant applications. If I scroll down just a little bit, again, we see some standardized questions that we see on a lot of different grants. Also, we want to give the opportunity to add new Q&A. So if we have new grants, new grantees that are going out and finding that information, and some new organizations might have new questions and the users don't know really how to answer those questions, they can go through this other Q&A repository, and users, if they get a new questions, they can have that and add that information as needed. And again, they can use that same inherent functionality where we search for different words, search for different information to bring up those questions that are relevant to us. And at the bottom here, again, we have more charts and different information letting us know those timelines and those monies that we're looking at. So after we filled all this information, again, if it's a one-off grant that maybe it's a new organization that we're trying to get grant funds from, this is where we can take that information and fill that information out. If it's a grant that we've used many times, maybe it's somebody we have a really strong relationship with, or a federal agency or state agency that always uses that same application, we can have the system fill that information out for us. So once we have those copies of those applications in the system, we can drag and drop that information. Again, if I open up the background, what we're doing is setting up that information. We have it where it automatically goes out. And again, this is dimensional, so it's going to be based on that specific grant that we're connected to. It'll fill all that information for us. And that way, we're not looking around and trying to figure out and spending time filling out that information. Though, again, this is more that, if we're using that same application over and over again, this would be that use. If it's a one-off, we'd probably want to go back and, just have that information available to us and we can fill it out as needed. But for those relationships that we have for organizations that we're contacting with a lot of times, this makes a great use case.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eric. Okay, transitioning. So The agency successfully secures the grant. So what happens next? How can you thoroughly understand and comply with the grant's terms and conditions? Eric's going to pull up our a grant award and analysis dashboard that helps us thoroughly evaluate the terms and conditions. It'll help us understand the compliance requirements, identify potential risks, and plan for necessary adjustments to our project plan. Go for it, Eric.
All right, thanks, Chris. So as Chris was saying, this is our grant awarded grant analysis. So all the ones that are awarded to us, we have them where they show up on this screen. One thing we didn't talk about is security. So Anaplan's able to secure information down to the cell level, but also what we might have is like certain grants we only want certain people to see. So even though because I'm an admin, I have access to all grants that we have in the system that were awarded on this page. But if you have somebody who's only a manager of like 5 or 6 grants or even less, we can have it set up to where that drop down is only going to show those grants that is related to that person in that position. So, you might only have a few grants in here, but it's going to show all that same information that's relevant to it. So again, we have our different grants listed out. We have guardrails up, letting us know that there's certain attention that we need to spend for that grant. We also have our progress notes. Again, we want to have that narrative around those grants and what process we're doing, where we're at in the stages of that grant. Also with that, as we move forward, we might have that grant where it's a large amount and we want to be able to split that grant out into different cost objects, right? And so there might be a different terminology used at your organization, but in this case, we labeled it cost objects, and that's where we have different stages or different areas of the grant, and we want to separate those funds out to make that tracking a little bit easier and to give a little bit better view into where those funds are going.
Awesome.
So with that, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. So the next natural question would be, how do we accurately estimate and plan for the personnel costs needed for our project? During the pre and post award phases, we use this cost planning dashboard. We'll be able to meticulously plan the project's human resources by estimating personnel need, including researchers, administrative staff, project managers, etc. We'll be able to create a realistic staffing plan that aligns with the grant's guidelines.
Right. Yeah, exactly, Chris. So what we're looking at here is our resource cost planning. And what we're doing is we're doing a little research. We're figuring out who needs to be assigned to those specific grants to get the best outcome. And we want to make sure that we're not overtaxing some of these individuals. We want to make sure that, we're using the right people, but they have that time and availability to put their best foot forward when they're dealing with those grants. So what I'm going to do is scroll down the bottom here first to kind of show what we're talking about. We're finding those different personnel. So with this, we can have this coming from the HR system. It can live within Anaplan itself. Depends on what your organization wants to have and see. But in this case, what we have is we would have like information loaded from our HR systems, and we have different attributes associated with those individuals. So I can see that I have different drop downs for different positions that I want to apply for, and I want to research who in that different position has different skills associated with certain grants. They worked on different categories, their availability. So a lot of information here, so I can filter out and get a list of different people who fit that profile that I want to have going towards that grant. And also with that, I can see their availability within the chart here, so I know who's available and who's not on the fly. If I scroll back up, I'm able to select those people, and I can select those roles, those personnel, as you see here. And again, we're making it easy, so only like in this case, that computational scientists, only the people in that resource and that role would be able to be selected. And then I can do that utilization and request approval there.
Awesome. All right, moving on to purchase cost planning. So simultaneously, teams use the purchase cost planning dashboard to estimate and track costs and other necessary expenses for the grant. So the question is asked, how can we comprehensively and realistically track our spending effectively?
Right, Chris. So for the purchase cost planning, again, just like we saw on the last page when we're talking about resources and who's getting applied, We're going to have different amounts of costs that are going to come and be applied to those different cost objects and those different grants. So we see here again, if we say we're going to add, we have different um, purchase information that we want to be filled out. We'll make sure that we have all the information relative to us. With that also, we can have descriptions. We have that different narrative coming up, letting us know what that purchase is for. So we're not, trying to track and figure out where that information is coming from or why this person applied for this purchase. We want to have that information at our fingertips and have it flow through the entire platform. So as we fill that out, the information, we can have it to where it's either a one-time amount or it's going to be automatically accrued throughout the process from a start and end date. We can request approval, and we can have all the information showing us what those statuses look like as we move forward.
Perfect. And as the project progresses, you'll need to be able to approve budget adjustment and allocate additional funds based on the needs of the grants. How can we ensure timely approvals to keep our project on schedule? The management approvals dashboard that Eric's bringing up, it allows us to submit a request, allocate funds for whatever is needed, and the system will route the request to the necessary approvers and send automated reminders.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So again, we're thinking about workflow. So we don't want to have those managers run out and try to figure out, what grants they're in charge of, who's being assigned to them, where these purchases or these resource requests are coming from. Want to have that all on one page for them, so it's really easy to see what grants they're in charge of and what approvals they need to make, or rejections in that case if they would need to make that, right? So we have one page. Again, if we go down to the bottom, we can see that same information. Now we're hoping the person that put in that resource request or went through this process, but if the manager needs to go through and kind of do a little bit more research on their own, we want to give that information to them at their fingertips. So again, they can see what resources are being requested for them. Also, if we look at the top here, we can see all those purchases that were being requested for. So again, if you look up, like I said, we want to have one single source of truth. We want to have everything in our platform connected, so we have a real world view of what's being asked of us. So if I come through and approve this information, we see our KPIs at the top start changing. So we can see what our starting balance is, our total forecast to spend, and our amount remaining without having to do a lot of work. So instantaneously, as I approve these, we can see our burn down getting lower, and we see how much we have left at the end of the project if I start making these approvals. And then with that, I can submit that information. Again, we're looking at workflow. There's different ways to do workflow. There's integrated workflows. We can assign tasks. And also, we could also come back and say comment. So if there's something, we're wanting to look at or we want somebody else to look at, we can send a comment out. Again, we have comments and narrative in the system itself, but if we want to call out individual, I can just put at and then start typing that person's email and then send a message to that person directly. So again, it will send an email to the person through their email, like Outlook or whatever system the organization is using, and it'll also put an indicator at the top here. So if I come up, and show, oops, about that, show our message here, I can see like if somebody has a message for me, it'll have a little red one there or something like that to indicate to me, something's been asked of me and I need to fill out that information or get back to that person immediately.
Awesome. Great.
So
So
I'll go
now,
submit those real quick. Yeah.
sorry, go for it.
Yep. No, sorry about that. So with that, I just hit the submit button. I went ahead and approved that. So right now I can see my, my starting balance again, forecasted amount, and then the amount I have remaining from the start and end of that grant date.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eric. So transitioning off of this management approval dashboard, how can we accurately project and plan for future expenses?
Right. Thanks, Chris. So again, we're wanting the users to be able to go in and get detailed information, so we make sure our burn down rates, our ending balances are as close to zero as possible, because we don't want to overspend, but we also don't want to underspend either. We want to utilize our grant amounts as much as possible. So we have a cost object expense forecasting that's going to do this for us. So we're able to go in as users. Again, as we go through our grants and our cost objects, we can see what's been assigned to us, and we can see that breakout of those cost objects and where they're at. Again, with Anaplan, as I go through, if I click on certain things within the dashboard, everything in that dashboard will update for me. So as I come through, I can see those different accounts associated with that cost object. I can see the update of my burn rates and where I sit. And I can know if actions require, if I need to make some updates or add new resources or anything to that matter that I need to look at. I can also click on that top level to get an overview of where I sit. So I can get those ending balance, and I know that end rate that I'll be at for that burn down. With the charts and graphs, if I click on some of these icons here, I can have a view or a not view certain items. So if I just want to look at my expenses, I can see, hey, I have a large expense that was coming through from that one-time buy, but I know what that was because the approval process and that page. And as I hover over, I can see what those amounts are. But again, as I'm looking through this, I can see right now my total burn down looks great. I'll be just on budget. But say if there's other changes I want to make, I want to have some other tracking, so I can see what my actuals are. If I click on my different objects, I can go into that better detail and see what spend we have and what costs. So this one here, get a little bit better view. All right. And then I have some summaries at the bottom here also. So, different what my monthly accumulations are, the types, those different cost objects. I can have those different accounts. So as much detail as I want to see and drill down to and make changes to, I can do that. Down a little bit further, I have even more detail that I can get into, showing our prior year actuals, showing where our budget's at today, our different values. I can have that broken down by accounts or however I want to see it. So again, you're able to slice and dice information as needed with Anaplan because of that dimensionality. So in this case, I took that above information and I'm able to break it down monthly by those different accounts. Here, what I'm able to do is go in and decide and see there's different rates that maybe I want to spread those costs. So you can see I have like planning types and different growth rates. So I can say if these aren't selected, I'm automatically going into a input growth rate on spend. But down at the bottom here, I have a chart that's showing me if I select some of these other different rates that I can apply to, what those will look like in the grant moving forward in those spends. So I can go in and choose different ones that I want and have that information applied to that grant on how that spread's going to look, with the ability still to make those overrides as needed.
Awesome. And I'll just add why this is relevant too and really helps Anaplan stand out. By forecasting costs for your upcoming research phases and additional resources, the financial planning is going to be accurate and aligned with the grant's requirements. This prevents lost drawdown opportunities and provides reliable financial data for your grantors. So finally, transitioning to one of the most important parts, the milestone reporting dashboard. How can we demonstrate our progress and compliance to the grantor? This dashboard is crucial for demonstrating the progress to the grantor. You'll be able to track milestone by different phases, provide detailed reports, make sure you're showing compliance and achievements of the objectives of the grant.
Right, Chris. So the milestone dashboard, we're able to put everything as far as your tracking your time into one place. We can add new milestones as needed. But as you see here, as I click on these milestones, we have a display over here to the left, or a grid over here to the left, that's showing us, timeline, different notes associated with that milestone, what that milestone is, and we have different statuses. So you see we have different colors for those milestones. I can select a drop down and say if it's on time, at risk, behind, or late. So our main bar here that represents that grant is going to update to match the lowest denominator color. So whatever the lowest is, that's what it's going to show. So make it really visible and easy to see. Also, if you notice, those dates are going to update on the fly. So if I'm in a meeting covering lots of grants, I can grab that milestone, move it. And as I move it and release it, that date's going to update for me and stay with that. Also, if I go outside my timeline, it's all automatically go red for me. So I know that that grant, needs to be looked at and we need to review and see what the issue is and why we're going outside our timeline, or if we need to make some other adjustments to it. With that also, again, like we said, with security, you can view just those grants assigned to you. But in this case, I'm gonna go to this top level, and just to make it super easy, I can see all my grants at one time, and I can see which ones need attention and which ones we're doing good on. So I can flow down real quick. I can see again that bar is going to be my least common denominator, so I can know instantly what's good and what's bad, what we need to look at. If I need to make updates on the fly, I don't have to go looking for it. I can just grab it, make that change as needed. And then also I have a box here that's letting me know that that milestone was achieved. So if I check that box, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's been achieved, it's going to automatically turn it green for me. And if I say all these have been achieved on time, I'll get that final result of green. With that also at the bottom, a lot of that information we saw with that burn down rate, different numbers and different charts, just to make it a little bit easier if I need a little bit more insight when I'm going over those milestones to make sure that we're staying on time and in line with what that grant needs.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Is there any other parts of this dashboard that you think are relevant that we should bring up before we jump into the Q&A?
I think we're pretty good. I will show real quick. We do have a cost object reporting dashboard as well. Of course, we didn't go over everything today. We just want to bring up some key components to make it a little bit easier to see. But this one is just one that's going to bring a lot of information real quick to your fingertips, right? So we just want to make it to where you select your grant, select your version, time period, anything like that. It's going to instantaneously convey a lot of information to you very quickly, so that you can see it, you can see what needs to be considered, and then move on for the rest of your day.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Eric, for the demonstration. We'll jump into the Q&A now. There were a few questions that were requested. I guess to start, so as you demonstrated the customization capabilities throughout the demo, how easy is it to create a custom dashboard and report specific to a grants management process? So Eric, if you would, maybe bring up that dashboard again and show how you can move the cards around. I think that could be valuable to demonstrate and talk to.
Sure. Let me share my screen one more time. Sorry about that. All right. So again, since I'm an admin, I have the little pencil icon up here. So that's for editing the page. If you do a save personal copy, what that's going to do is copy the dashboard you're looking at and make it a personal copy where only you see it. Now, depending on your access, again, you still won't have access to certain things. You don't have access to security already. You won't have access to certain functionality as far as like tasks or, different buttons that you might have. But for the most part, you can take anything on that page and move it around the way you want to and make certain pivots or anything like that to make it a little bit easier for you to see. But in this case, I can hit that icon. I can pull in different information. Again, I can pull in different grids. So what I would do is just pull that grid down, hit configure. And then what this is doing is going into all our different modules, right? So if I say, hey, I want this grant milestones module, I just select it. I have those same functionality we saw before, what was in that grid. I can make those changes here. So I can, move these things around a little bit as needed. Then I can make that update, and it's going to bring that grid in as we saw. And I can make those changes. I can drop down information. I can come in. I can do different things. I can make something visible, invisible. I can make it to where you can pivot or can't pivot, different formatting. So a lot of functionality in the background here that anyone can do. really easy to use. All you're doing is, again, just grab it, drop it in, make those changes, and then once you publish that, it's the same as saying we're saving that information, right? And we're saving it for all the users to see. Once a user gets used to this, and if they're an admin, we don't want y'all to have to call us to make these simple changes. We want y'all to be able to, take this information, change it the way you need to, make those modifications, save it, and then you're ready to go. You don't have to call on us or different consulting groups or anything like that to do that work for you. We want to give the power to the users and give you all that ability to make those changes on the fly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eric. Another question that has come through. Can you elaborate a little bit on how Anaplan integrates with other common software tools like Excel, an ERP, or potentially another grant management platform where we might be using?
Sure. So again, with Anaplan, if I have Excel, let's say you have inputs that you make, if you have a grid and you have some formulas in Excel or anything like that, and you just want to copy that information over, again, with Anaplan, even though this is web-based, I still copy and paste just like I do in Excel. So if I copy this information out, I can throw those numbers in Excel. You can export that information, in different ways. So, as far as getting information in and out using Excel, it's very easy. There's Excel add-ons, add-ins that you can use that connect to the system as well. We usually like to try to keep everything in the dashboard, but certain users like using Excel still, so we still have that capability if needed. Also, we have different APIs, so there's all kinds of connectivity out there, different systems. Anaplan can take any information from any outside system, bring it in, adjust it as needed to make it usable within Anaplan, and then Anaplan's logic can be applied to that information. So even if your system's doing logic for it, getting that information ready, it can just be pulled into Anaplan as is, or it can be digested by Anaplan, logic and different information applied to it, and then that dimensionality to make sure that it's easily to digest for those users, and we're able to see that information very rapidly.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. We'll take one more question. So as our grant portfolio grows, how does Anaplan ensure that the platform scales to accommodate more users and data? Can you touch on this a little bit?
Sure. So with Anaplan, it's very scalable. So you have different amounts of data that you have and different storage based on the amount of users. So with that, you can add a lot of information. There's different ways of controlling the size of the database and the size of the modules out there based on logic used, how much information is brought in, is it usable information or not. But as far as being scalable, everything in here is going to grow with your company. So if there's changes that need to be made, we can make those on the fly. Sizes, increases, anything like that, that can all be done on the fly through Anaplan.
Perfect. All right. I think we're up on time, so we'll close it out now. For those of you who would like to stay in touch, an Anaplan representative will be reaching out to you based on the contact information you provided. We'll ask for feedback. We'll answer any questions that you might have submitted but didn't get addressed today. We'll look to understand your process further, with the possibility of maybe doing a personalized view of your grant processes within Anaplan. So to conclude, great. Great. Thank you so much. So on behalf of Anaplan and the Allitix team, we appreciate you attending and we look forward to connecting with you in the near future. Thank you so much.